Hello Linux lovers, my name's Wimpy, welcome to my world. It's Ubuntu MATE season. Again, kind of, because, you know, the last few streams have been to do with the GPD Pocket 3 that's behind me and getting that all working and enabled. Hello Linux Paul, welcome back. Hello Paul, hello Luke, hello Takov. Thanks for stopping by again. So I'm trying to avoid the mistakes I made in the last cycle for Ubuntu MATE, where kind of everything got crammed in at the end and we had a couple of big bugs that crept into day one and it was a bit of a mess. So we're trying to get all of the big problems fixed up front. And one of the things I noticed in the GitHub issue tracker is that there was an existing integration in MATE Tweak and the Marco window manager for Compton, which is a GL accelerated compositor. Now the problem is that hasn't been updated for some years, I think 5 years now. But a fork has emerged called picom, I think that's how we're pronouncing it, which is actively maintained and has some nifty features. So it was suggested we move to that, and with an LTS approaching, it's good to build on top of firm foundation. So that's what we're going to be doing, and some of that work's done, so I'm going to talk through what's been done so far, and what we're going to do today is sort of put the cherry on top of that work. I'm rather happy with how it's turned out. And we'll get into some of the advantages of this in just a little bit. But if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, then this was originally recorded live on twitch.tv/Wimpy's World. Thank you. So if you want to join in these sessions interactively, just like that in fact, then come and give us a follow on twitch.tv/Wimpy's World. Right, okay, so haven't streamed for about a week because some of this work that needed to be doing in Ubuntu MATE is some of those jobs that you just have to sit down and give it some dedicated thought and attention. So what's been going on in Ubuntu MATE over this last week is pulling together all of the strings from the different upstream projects that we work with that actually make Ubuntu MATE what it is. So there's been new releases from the Ayatana Indicators project. So we've pulled in, all of this work is happening in Debian ostensibly, and I'm going to show you how I track all of that in a moment. It's super high tech, you're going to be dead impressed. So we've been getting all of that work in that upstream project done. There was a rather significant bug which got fixed a few days ago, so that should all be integrated now. We've got the return of the messages indicator as a result of that, and a whole bunch of new features. And then we've had new point releases in MATE Desktop itself, which address some of the bugs that we encountered at the end of the last cycle in the 2110 release. So I think at this point, all of the big stuff's fixed. So we're working on a new feature, which I quite like. I think this could be good for me personally. And it may become a default, and that's what we'll need to figure out. So we've pulled all together everything from MATE Desktop, from Ayatana Indicators, and then some of the underlying changes in Ubuntu. For example, the transition to Firefox as a snap package, that required some work in order to pull all of that in. So all of those foundations are done, which sets me up quite nicely now for next week to go through some of the standard things that you do in every release, which is updating artwork and banners and all of that in the installer. And I want to try and get that done well ahead of release, so we can really work with the QA team between now and release and just try and crush as many bugs as we can. Try and put out a really good solid one. We've got plenty of time to do it, hopefully. Hey Dex, welcome back. Yes, I'm in Ubuntu Orange today. And Luke says, oh, hang on, I've lost my window. Hang on, Luke says this. I've been enjoying your streams in the background while I work, Dex. Yes, so Dex is a member of our Discord community, and people that are members there on Twitch, they get notifications posted when they go live. So if you're interested in following other Linux enthusiasts and developers, then come and join our Discord, which is available here. And you can find other people that are doing interesting stuff with Linux and dev. Right then, so let's get into this. Let's start with the high-tech solution for tracking what I've been working on. It's a spreadsheet. I have written a little program that goes and trawls through, basically uses RMadison, which is a tool to inspect packages in the archives. And because I do most of my work in Debian, that's going to become more apparent in some months' time. In fact, there's a project brewing, which I'll be talking more about probably after April. But I do most of my work with several projects in Debian, so this work all happens here, and then I need to make sure all of that work gets into this column here. And so I'd uploaded early versions of my Debian packaging work into, well, originally Impish, and then made sure that those were up to date in Jammy. But what I prefer to do is make sure that we sync over all of the sort of peer-reviewed packaging that gets into Debian and pull that back over the top. So this spreadsheet was the state of things about a week ago, and this is what I'm using to track my activity. So I can see here that I requested syncs of these packages, and then for reasons, a few of them require manual syncs because the upstream projects use submodules, and therefore the content of the tarballs is slightly different, and those get rejected from the build system, so we have to manually pull those ones over. So this is what I've been trolling down, tracking which bugs we're fixing along the way. Well, Takov, you're not that far wrong, because it's a bash script that generates this spreadsheet. So I hopefully still on brand in that regard. So this is sort of like the background work. It's not very glamorous, but this is like the stuff that actually sort of, you know, makes a new release a thing that, you know, builds and gets and works and all the rest of it. So this is, you know, if you think of Ubuntu, there's so much work that goes on either from staff at Canonical or other community contributors that makes Ubuntu, and then each of the flavors have their like bit on top. It's like, you know, the frosting on the top of the cake. And so these packages probably represent like the last 5%, which is like distinctively Ubuntu MATE. So these packages are the things that make Ubuntu MATE as opposed to Ubuntu. So this is sort of the majority of the stuff that I track and work with. And I'm pleased that all of this is up to date, and this was the one that was causing us some problems. So we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to pull down last night's nightly ISO, we're going to install, make sure that the indicators aren't busted, which is where we were, and we should also find we've got new versions of MATE Tweak which have this compositor integration. So we're going to take a look at all of that and see how it works, see if it works in a VM, and if it works in a VM, because I know it works on my machine here, I might make it the default, so when we enter testing we can see if this throws up any serious issues for people, and if it doesn't, this could be the default compositor. And I'll explain why I think it could be a good option and how it compares with Compis, which is something we used to use in the past. So let's have a look. Right, let's move over to, let's have a think. Let's go and get the latest daily. So let's go to, no, QuickMU. This is a project I need to get to early next week as well. So we'll quick get that. So that will just update what we have. It might not need pulling because I did run this in a cron job last night, so maybe this will have the latest stuff. We'll see how it goes. I might need to make that a bit more verbose so we know what's going on there. And whilst that's running, let's head over here So let's just do this. So I think this is the actual project. Okay, so this is the commit that landed the change, replacing Compton with picom, and as you'll see, this is actually quite straightforward. So we literally, it was just a name change. So you'll see all the way through here that it was, generally speaking, it was a name change within MATE tweak itself, but where it got interesting is replacing the wrapper that uses the Compton compositor with an uncomposited Marco window manager. When I transitioned over to picom, also this was like a wrapper I wrote some years ago. I've learned a few tricks since then, so I decided to improve the wrapper as we go. And then it needed adapting because the way that picom and Compton operate is a bit different. Compton required sort of tweaks depending on your drivers and graphics card and what have you. And although picom does have some cases where certain features are kind of geared to don't work as well on different hardware, the vast majority of it does seem to work extremely well on everything. So I think it could qualify as a one-size-fits-all type affair. So there's the wrapper, and we'll look at that in a bit more detail. And then all of this was just, literally search and replace, changing Compton for picom. So that was the work we did earlier in the week. So let's just go back. Oops, let's just go back to here. Right, there we go. So we've got our VM. So what we'll do is we'll throw away the disk image, and then we'll run up a new one, because what I want to see, and let's just make sure that appears on the, and there we go. So let's boot. Oh gosh, I wonder how loud this is going to be. Let's be forewarned, the VM may make a big chime in a moment. I really need to figure out how to stop it doing that. There we go. Okay, that wasn't shockingly loud for me, so hopefully, I think maybe I did actually tune that at some point. So what we'll do is we're going to click try, because we will do an install, but we can tell immediately from the desktop session if everything's working as expected, and I can immediately see that it is. And the clue was this here, which is the network indicator, and that was not showing up, and in fact a number of the indicators were not working properly. So we have fixed that now, which is terrific. So that's all looking pretty good. What we'll do is we'll kick off an install, and then there's that chime again, and then we'll actually test out this new stuff on the installed system. We don't want to download while we go, because I actually want to see what updates, because overnight we uploaded some stuff to Debian, and hopefully that's all synced into Ubuntu. So we'll do an install so we can see how that's all gone. This shouldn't take long. Oh, I can't remember my password. What's this? This is jammy. Of course, my password is test. Right then. So that's all running. So I see that Linux Pool says that Compton was their choice of compositor back when they were running i3. Yeah, I mean, Compton was, the bee's knees at that time. There's been a number of these compositors that have been written and then forked into something, and then forked into something, and forked into something. And Compton's in the middle of that at the moment. But sadly, it doesn't look like it's getting any effort. But picom is extremely active. Good morning, Yannick. Welcome to the stream. So one of the things that's not happening at the moment, which will change, is that picom is not installed by default at the moment. So what we're going to do is modify the MATE tweak package to change that so that picom does get installed by default, which is interesting because I did remove, although the support still exists in MATE tweak for well, but now picom, but also compis, I did remove a number of those things from the default install. I removed compis from the default install and Compton because they were more options. It was more opportunity for people to discover places where things weren't nicely integrated. And a lot of people were using compis because it does give you a very nice visual experience, and it's also got some really useful accessibility features for sort of visually impaired users. So it still has a place, but it doesn't tightly integrate with the MATE desktop, despite the pieces that I wrote to achieve some of that integration. So a lot of people were using it, but it wasn't a great experience, and there was lots of bugs about, you know, workspaces not integrating and various other things. So it was all a bit of a, there was sort of some glue code which wasn't very reliable that was sort of holding it all together. So that sort of got jettisoned. But what I've found is that picom offers a number of little visual polish, which isn't too flashy. But because it sits on top of the Marco window manager, which is tightly integrated with the rest of the MATE desktop, then we get some visual polish, but we get none of the drawbacks of using something like compis where all of the integration wasn't quite there. So I feel like it could be a good default. And last night, so I see Yannick's here. Yannick and I are participating in an emerging Trackmania Stadium league. It's sort of Trackmania for old Linux nerds, I think, is what it actually is. So Linux Gamecast, Ven Stone at Linux Gamecast, has created a Trackmania server, and he wants to learn how to Trackmania, and you know, a bunch of us are participating in that. So we all want to play the game, but we don't want to go on the public servers and get owned in every race. So we've got this safe space to sort of learn the game and play against each other. Anyway, I used a picom composited desktop on this machine last night to do my hours practice a day, and it held up extremely well. I was very happy with the results, so I'm feeling like it's in a good place. Right, let's get this VM rebooted. Well, Yannick, I think you're overstating things there. Yannick is claiming that he smashed all my records. He beat me in one by 0.02 of a second, but there were several others where I was 10 seconds faster than Yannick. So smashing is not how I would describe that, Yannick. I think you're overstating your corner just a little bit. Right then, let's get that bounced. So we have an installed system. So the first thing we'll do is go and hello there. So welcome to the stream. Bailu, is that how we're pronouncing that? picom plus Ubuntu MATE. Oh, let me bring up that chat. Sorry, let's get through these in order. So I am Luke. My most used OS this year has been Mac OS. Yeah, well, I set up a Mac behind me. It's there. I've got some interesting hardware for it. But I've managed to get it running Linux, and it mostly runs Linux, which was my intention. So Bailu goes on to say, let's have a look here. picom plus Ubuntu MATE is what I used for about 5 months before I switched back to GNOME. The only real problem I had with it was dragging windows became extremely laggy while in a Zoom meeting. Interesting. So oh, looking at your avatar, Baloo, I guess is how we're pronouncing your name. So not with picom, but with the stock MATE compositor, I have, and also with the composition pipeline enabled in the NVIDIA drivers, I've noticed some sort of Electron applications in particular, when they get moved around, it really spikes the GPU utilization. And I've tuned the picom configuration to hopefully avoid that. Hello, why have I got a black? Why are we looking at a black screen here? This is not what we want, is it? Okay, let's try booting that VM again. Oh, it's off. It's on the other monitor now. Oh goodness, this is so frustrating when it does that. Right, here we go. So let's get logged in. So I'll take you through like the changes that on what we're looking at. So yes, we'll send the telemetry. Always do that. Score 1 for. I think I probably make up like 50% of all Ubuntu MATE installs in the metrics database. Right then. So the first thing I can see is that this is here, so we're all good there. And if we bring up MATE tweak, in fact, let's just do it this way. We should find under Windows. Yeah, so this has changed. So it says no compositor, and now it says X present, and that's the protocol that the Marco compositor uses with its internal compositor to do compositing. So I've changed that. It used to say like adaptive. So that says X present, and you'll notice that the new option is absent. So what we will do is we'll do two things. We'll first of all update, and we'll see if the packages that we uploaded to Debian last night, that's the wrong password. I do have another password which is not test, by the way. What did I type there? Oh, update. Let's try that again, shall we? Right then. So we'll just check and see what because these images get built. Oh, so actually I think our packages will have made it over before this. So if we do apt show Ayatana indicator application, this should be yes, okay, excellent. So that is the new version. So that's the version that was uploaded to Debian yesterday, and that's already synced over and by default was in the image. So that's ace. That means pretty much everything's over now. I've got only one thing I need to take care of manually, so we're cooking on gas there. So now we will manually install picom. And it's going to bring in those additional libraries. What was that? Let's just have a look at what that size would be. So we're looking at, oh, it's tiny. Okay, that's no consideration at all for the image size, considering there's now 4 versions of NVIDIA drivers on the ISO image, which is why they're all approaching 4 gigabytes now. So Troy was asking, which Trackmania are we playing? We are playing Trackmania Stadium is the one that we're playing, which is the version of Trackmania from 2013. The newest Trackmania, which was released in 2020, still doesn't work under Proton. I have it, but it doesn't run. Anyway, the advantage of this older version is that, well, it works, and there's also lots of assets and levels. So what Ven is doing is creating putting 15 new tracks on the server every week on like a Sunday. We have a group practice on Tuesday night. We then practice on our own time through the week, and then we have a race on Friday night. And it's It's jolly good fun. In fact, I am quite likely going to stream tonight's race here, including some of my practice, because I haven't done enough practice this week and I can't have Yannick, bragging about how he beat me by 200ths of a second on one track. So I need to get some practice time in. What time is the race? It's late, Yannick. I think it was my time last week. It started at midnight. So it's late. But I will be doing race practice from several hours before then. Right, so we've installed picom. So let's go back to MATE tweak. And we should now find that we have a new option here, which is Marco OpenGL. So what I've decided to do is reference the protocol that's being used rather than the software. So if we click that, there we go. So that's swapped over. And you can see here it says Marco picom is what it's using. And well, it doesn't look so different. In fact, this was a test I wanted to do. I wanted to switch between these two because one of the things I've done is change the configuration for how the drop shadow is rendered. So if we put this window here and we switch back to X present, see, this one's quite dark, which I've never been a fan of. I felt like it was a bit too overdone, and Linux Paul was talking about using Mac OS. I've kind of styled this one, which I've customized myself based on what I see on the Mac behind me, which is a bit more subtle, I think. So, it's still there, but it's not so in your face. And also what that means is when you get, let's just resize this one and this one, when you get them stacked on top of each other, you have to have lots of windows over stacking each other before it becomes like a black line as opposed to a shadow, which is one of the problems with the defaults in Marco. You get two windows stacked over each other and it looks really very black. So it's a subtle change. So that's working, and I'll try and sort of show some of the things that this brings. So for example, if I now click on one of these indicators, you'll see that these fade in and fade out as we move across them. So that's something that I've added into the configuration, which I really quite like the look of that. So as we open things, they fade in, and they don't fade in so slowly as to be annoying and give you the impression that things are lagging and all the rest of it. So I'm pretty happy with this whole setup. So let's just take a look at how this is done. We'll do that over on the actual machine itself. So let's take a look here. Let's tuck you away. So if we code this. So this is the wrapper. So this is quite straightforward. So the only things that are relevant here is that it just uses the GLX backend. There are other backends for picom, but I'm finding that this seems to be good enough for most systems most of the time. We obviously make sure the appropriate components are available, and then this is something I've added. By default, it will enable vsync, but it checks to see if you've got NVIDIA settings installed, and if you have, it will query the NVIDIA settings and see if you've got the force composition pipeline enabled. And if you have, which I do by default, it will then turn vsync off. Now the reason for that is that this force composition pipeline is effectively a compositor in the NVIDIA drivers. So you don't want two compositors trying to sync to blanking, because actually what happens is when you have that happen, as you drag things around, a bit like Baloo was saying, it really stutters and it's clunky. So this tries to, avoid that happening in the circumstances where I know it's going to be a problem. And then we just do some cleanup. We make sure we haven't got any other compositors running, because you can't run 2 compositors at the same time. So we kill old compositors just in our namespace, and we also make sure there are no old copies of the window manager knocking around either. I've put an option in here so that if people want to create their own picom configuration, and there are reasons why people may want to do that, you can create your own config, and this will favor that configuration over the default. And then here are the defaults. So it sticks the compositor into the background, makes sure that no configuration is loaded, chooses the backend and vsync options, and then configures things in order to make it all work nicely. And you know, Baloo was talking about stuttering and hitching and all the rest of it. One of the things I found is that if you're familiar with how Xorg works, it has this capability where it can update a portion of the screen not during a refresh, and that's called damage. And by default it uses damage, and it's quite a common extension that's used in the X server. But I found that with damage enabled, you do get some artifacting and some weird behavior. So this potentially comes at a slight reduction in performance, but it's a much more consistent experience. And then you can see here I've configured the shadows. Some of these are deprecated, but they're useful catch-alls still to make sure that docks and things don't get shadows put on them, and when you're dragging and dropping icons they don't get drop shadows. Most of this here, shadow exclude, is how you're supposed to do it, and I've tried to account for all of the cases that I know of, but just in case I've missed any, whilst these are still offering some function, I've included them. Here's our fading in and out, and unredirecting is the ability if you've got a full screen window like a game. Unredirecting means don't go through the compositor, just let that application write by itself. So this seems to be working well for me, and there's some quirks here. This is to account for client-side decorated stuff, which has already got its own shadows, so you don't need to add them again. This is for hidden windows, and then this one is a nice thing that I found, because I did all of this stuff to do this side-by-side tiling. You'll notice it gets rid of the corners, and in the Marco window manager I added patches to disable shadows on tiled windows, because you don't want the shadows overlapping on these pixel perfect aligned side-by-side windows. So what this does is basically implement the same capability in picom, so you get the same behavior when you're using the picom compositor. So I'm very happy with how all of that's gone. Also has the advantage, if you've got a fully maximized window, you don't get any shadows bleeding onto adjacent screens as well, which is something you can encounter. And then the last part is, once the compositor's up and running, we then bring up the window manager with no compositing enabled, so that it's manageable windows are available. So Dungeons and Dragons indeed. So that's how all of that works, and I'm pretty happy with the outcome. I'm pleasantly surprised at how good it is, actually. So I think what we'll do is we'll change the Mate tweak packaging to install picom by default. So we'll go and do that now, because that's a relatively quick change. This is going to be done in Debian, so that's in this project. And Mate tweak, Mike Gabriel, bless him, he's going to hate me for this, because I've done 3 updates to Mate tweak in the last couple of days. Let's just make this a bit bigger, and let's also just move this out of the way, because that's No, that was the wrong window entirely that I've just grabbed there. That window. Let's just move you to one side because you're overlapping in the background, which is a bit distracting. Right, there we go. Okay. Where are we? Am I in the right place? Yeah. So. So I think we'll just need to change the control file for this. Because here we'll probably have it as a suggests. Yeah, here it is. So we will just do this. And bring all of those up. And that should just about do it. So that will be a recommends, and that's looking good. So we'll save that. We'll go here. Look at the git status. Diff. This, that should be the only change. Yes, it is. So we'll change this alone. Oops. And that is the appropriate commit message to explain what's going on there. Okay, so we'll push that up. Hope Mike hasn't done anything with that, otherwise we're going to get a conflict. No, we're good. Okay, so now we'll look at the change log there. So this is sitting waiting for Mike to do something with, and if I just go back to my VM, what we'll do is we'll just remind ourselves what version of the package I've got in the VM of MATE tweak. And that is 040 Ubuntu 1. So I will make that 0 Ubuntu 2. So we will do this here. Actually, we'll do this. We're going to do that. Then we'll save this, bump the version to that, and Debian control. Oh, it wasn't a BD actually, was it? It was just a D. Picom. No, that last commit message is wrong. So I will go and change that in just a moment. Okay, so let's have a look here. Hello, Tactical Pew. So they say I have 60 Hz and 144 Hz monitors, and whenever both are enabled, the frame rate of everything on the desktop runs at 60. Tried disabling and forcing. So, yes. Are you running a desktop environment that uses Xorg, or are you running a desktop environment that uses Wayland? Is the first thing I wanted to know, because I know it's more complicated to run. Yeah, Xorg. It's more complicated to run displays at different refresh rates on Xorg. It is possible. You probably need to configure that through the Xorg configuration, or use XR&R. after the fact to set the refresh rate on each display, which you can do a bit like this. So you can do XR and R. I think, is it just rate and then like the refresh rate? I'm not sure if you need to say output or not, and say what the monitor is, like, you know, HDMI 1. I don't know if it's that way, but if you look at XR and R, you can manually change the refresh rate that way, which you can use for testing because it applies instantly. Okay, so we'll do that. This is going to be for Jammy. And uncharacteristically, I am not going to upload this into a test PPA. We're going to put this directly into the archive, because all I've done is just move a package from suggests to recommends. So we know the package builds already. So we will upload that to the archive. And that should do it. So that should turn up, and what that will do is that anyone that has, I mean, it's unlikely, but anyone that has Jammy, Ubuntu MATE Jammy installed, picom will get pulled in as an update now automatically, and subsequent ICE images that get built will automatically have picom in the image. You're welcome, Tactical Pew, no problem. It's not something I've done much with. I've got the big monitor behind me is a higher refresh rate monitor. It's not super high refresh rate, it's 100 Hertz. And obviously a single monitor on its own is easy to just say this is the refresh rate. But I also have this, which is an external panel. You know, it's a very thin, you know, external display, HDMI and USB-C, and this is 60 Hertz. And I have connected this alongside that panel, and I remember I did have to mess about, but I've only done it once, so I'm not too sure on the details. Something I will be getting back to, because I'm thinking of using these as sort of additional screens up here. Excuse me. So what have we got here? I saw a message and then missed it. What have we got? Oh, thank you. Thanks, moderators. How do you know what the refresh rate is? Oh, well, so that's a question from Yannick. That's quite easy to determine. So this is the question that Yannick has. One way, that's the, oh no, this is the right, I'm getting confused about VMs and physical machines now. So here is the monitor refresh rate for my monitor configuration, and you can see here the refresh rate is here, and the refresh rates are advertised via the ED ID of the monitor. So if your monitor supports different refresh rates, they will be available here in the pick list. So it should be, so long as the ED ID is right, and sometimes that negotiation's better and sometimes it's pretty terrible. So yeah, as you will have seen when I was doing the capture cards with the Raspberry Pi 4, that's not being accurately you know, sent over, but you should be able to do it from here, providing the ED ID is correct. Right, so Yannick has two, yeah, so it does support two different rates. It could do, yeah, I mean, by all means give it a try. You'll know immediately in a game. So and Tactical Pew says that they use the NVIDIA settings, as do I, because I have that. So if I'll bring up the same thing in my NVIDIA settings. So let's go and look and see what NVIDIA says. So this is the control panel on my machine. I have got this on, yeah, I've got it on the right place. So here's the display configuration. Why is this being weird about being resized? There we go. Has this got anything in here about refresh rate, resolution, position, configuration? I don't see anything in here. So maybe refresh rate is elsewhere. Let's go and see what we can learn. Nothing in there about refresh rate, or there, or here. Won't be there. So where are you? Ah, here we go. Each of the monitors. Ah, so here we go. It's detected the refresh rate. I'm not sure that will help us because it's just a bunch of hex that I don't know how to read. But it says 60 hertz. Well, yeah, for reasons 59.95 because America. But anyway, so that seems to... Maybe it's not providing any option to change on my machine because they are all the same refresh rate. So maybe I'm just not seeing it. I mean, the resolution's there, but this... Yeah, I don't see it. Unless somebody knows that I'm looking in the wrong place. Oh, right, Yannick, that's excellent feedback. So, Yannick says that he didn't do anything, and it seems that on his system, both refresh rates of 144 on one screen and 60 on the other are supported by default, selected by default, and appear to work in Ubuntu MATE. Go somebody in the MATE desktop team for figuring that out, in which case probably Victor. So that's excellent, fantastic. The resolution line is where it says auto, you can change them. The resolution line where here, this one that's greyed out. Is that what you're referring to? The refresh rate drop down. Yeah, so it's not giving me any options because I only have one. Okay, understood. So yeah, so maybe you might do better than Tactical Pew to use. I don't know what desktop environment you're using. Go and look at the display configuration in the desktop that you're using to see if it presents the different options, and if it doesn't, take a look at using XR and R to specify the refresh rate manually. And if that works, you can put that in a systemd unit file for your user, or just simply a script that you put in your auto start to configure your displays accordingly. Be interested. Let us know how you get on with that. I'd be always interested to learn from other people's experiences. Right then. Right, okay, let's just close all of this. Yes, quit. Okay, so I don't want to push that up because Mike will deal with that in Debian. So what's next on the list of things? That's actually going to... Oh, I know. So we could make this the default now. That's a bold move. How confident am I about doing this? Let's go over to the VM. We'll install decomp editor. It's XR and R. So the utility I'm referring to is XR and R, and it's for resize and rotate. So is it... Oh, I'm on the wrong... Well, that was exciting. I managed to find a keyboard combination that switched my my views over there. Right, okay. Let's not do that again. Decomp editor. There we go. And we'll just go and look, because there's... there's a default setting that we'll need to override to tell the default installation which window manager to use, which we want to be Mate picom, Marco picom. So let's run the decomp editor. I will be careful, or maybe I won't. So let's look for WM, required components. Yeah, so one of the things that, so you'll see this says current value is Marco picom. That's because Mate tweak here, when you make this change, it doesn't just fork the new window manager, it also puts that setting in place so that when we reboot, in fact, that's a good test. Let's actually reboot. This is probably a sensible thing to do. So let's just restart this and make sure that it does actually come up cleanly on a new session, because I haven't tested that yet. I have it running here, but I haven't rebooted this machine since I made this configuration active. So if we log in, okay, well, the desktop came up and we'll know it's working because if we do this, we see our subtle shadows, and we can also confirm that this is the right thing by doing a bit of picom, and we should see there's an instance of picom running. There we go. That's excellent. I wonder what. There it is. It's running there. Look, there's our big long command of stuff. Look, we can just see there. So that's all working, and there also is the window manager running without the compositing enabled. So that's awesome. I wonder actually, let's just bring up decomp. I wonder if I search for composite. So maybe I should, for completeness, toggle that setting as well. I might have to have a think about that. Obviously didn't do that for a reason in the past, and I don't know if I can remember what the rationale would have been for that, but maybe that should be switched to off. That might cause more problems turning that off than it solves. So, okay, well, this works. So we will make this change. We'll make this the default, and then I'll let the QA team know that I've made a potentially breaking change, and they will need to report back and let me know if I've completely busted everything or not. So, but let's do it, because the only way that we're going to get these things tested is by making it the default. So let's go and do that thing. Right then. Okay, so we've got some ideas here. So Takov says, I am having a think. I'm using comments as a pause for thought moment. Wimpy Swell says, new idea for Twitch points. Brace yourself when you do something bold. Okay, all right. I'll see what I can find. And a noise comes out. Yeah, brace yourself. Yeah, we could do something like that. Yeah, okay. All right. I like this idea. In fact, I like this idea so much. I do have, I'll just open it. I won't bring it up. Oh, maybe I could briefly show what I've got here. So let's just find the right note. So this is OBS automation. Yeah, okay. So if I bring this down, I use standard notes to keep notes on all sorts of things. And I've got this sort of to-do list of things I will get to, like in time. So it's a big long list of stuff. So I need to sort of move out the the things that I've done. Where would I put this particular thing? This would be in OBS overlays. In fact, it'll probably go under Atom. So there we go. It will not get forgotten now. I have everything in here now. This standard notes is the one true source of all things that I have going on. It's pretty good. Right then. So, Tactical Pew had another question. So you're asking why Compis is not installed, not included in the list anymore. So I touched on this earlier. Although I wrote the integrations that exist in Compis for MATE desktop, it was not a completely clean integration. So there were some features of the desktop that the Compis environment just didn't integrate with, and it was just a little bit clunky. So I moved it out because I knew it was never going to get fixed, and yeah, so I just moved it to one side. It can be installed and the integrations that are there do work. It's just not as good as it could be, and picom represents a nice middle ground. Some of those sort of subtle visual effects, but retaining all of the desktop integration. Right then, you're welcome. So let's go and do this thing. So we're going to go over to Ubuntu MATE settings. Oh, actually, I've just realized something else, which I should probably look at, because here there is no Firefox icon, which is to be expected but different. And also I'm surprised it's not there, because it is installed. So if we do snap list, there we go. Firefox is in the image by way of the snap now. And also I looked at what was required, and these also need to be available. So if we do snap run Firefox, I'm just doing it this way out of interest. I know I could just go and click on an icon somewhere. There we go. That is a browser. I need to speak to Olivier actually, because we used to have a thing that would take you here. So we had like a ubuntu.org. No, that's not right. So this used to be our sort of vendor branding page that we had. So when you started Firefox, it would drop you here, so you could, you know, find the community and all the rest of it, and also do your searches and what have you. Choose your search engine in a nice easy way, and obviously choose the same defaults like dark mode. So that's obviously no longer there. So I wonder if that's still going to be possible. I will have to speak to my old friends. And also, so I wonder if we need to change that setting. So you'll notice there's no shadowing on Firefox here. So this is actually an interesting test. So that's excluded, and I wonder why. Let's go and do a thing. Let's cp user bin Marco picom to my home directory on the VM. Nano that, and just drag, because I added this because people had recommended it, but I don't know that's what we want. So we'll just do that, and then we'll oh yeah, okay, so go to tweak. Panels will enable the pull down terminal, and then we will just run Marco picom again, which will replace it, but with my local copy that I've just made without that line in for Firefox, and then we'll restart Firefox, and that should have, it does now have a border. So I don't think we want that line. So actually, we'll go and make another another change to Mate tweak. Okay, that'll be fun. Yeah, I think we definitely will definitely go and make that change. So Tactical Pew says, by the way, I use this distro. I assume you're referring to Ubuntu MATE for 2 years on the desktop, the 1804 version. It was awesome. Well, thank you very much. That's very. Thank you for your kind words. Yeah, it's not bad. I am pretty happy with where things are. I wish I had time to sit down and write. I'd like to write some sort of peripheral configuration stuff. Like I really wanted to write a Thunderbolt authentication UI at some point. I just haven't found the time to do it, but that's something that I think would be cool to add. It's basically and things like fingerprint integration. Those are like the two interesting sort of hardware-y type projects that I'd really like to take on, but I know it's a ton of work and I probably don't have the time to do it. Right then, so that will be another change that we're going to make. So let's go and do that now, because that's the more important thing. So let's go back to here. In fact, we've got it open. We are going to drop that line. I'm in the wrong Mate tweak here. We need to be in the actual project, not the packaging. Oops. Okay, that's the only change. Good. So that will require a new release of Mate tweak. So I'll probably make that release in a couple of days when I've got some testing back in case there are other changes. So we won't do any more with that for now, other than the fact that we've found an improvement. So Linux pool. Oh, hello. What's all this? I'm using it on my main system. So what's all this then? So Tackle says, I'm using it on my main system, Ubuntu 22.04 for a month now, and it's surprisingly solid. Oh, wow, okay. So you're using vanilla Ubuntu 22.04, or what will become 22.04. So this is one of those things. Until it's released, this is like internally when we're at Canonical, this is how it works. Until it's released, you refer to it by the code name, and after it's released, you refer to it by the version. So what's this here? So Linux Pool says Ubuntu Mate is great. If it wasn't for the Mate desktop issue I had with stacked dual monitors where maximized windows overlapped by the panel, I'd be using it still probably. Yeah, I'm not sure I understand. You mentioned this and I don't understand. So if I arrange two monitors one on top of each other, it should be apparent to me what the issue is. Is that a good enough test? A test for me, Paul? And Takov is indeed using vanilla Ubuntu. Right then, so let's go and change these settings. So we're going to do this in, it's the Ubuntu Mate override. So it's going to be here, and it's going to be user shared glib. That one, in fact. So this is where it's going to be, and I'm going to need to bring up the VM and remind myself which key we want to toggle. So it was so I think it's WM, isn't it? Here we go. So oh, in fact, I'm being foolish. I can do this. I can do this here. So let's run decomp editor on my local machine. Oh gosh, that's a bit big. What's going on there? Let's that's the largest window I have ever seen. Let's make you a bit smaller and manageable. Let's bring you down here. Okay. So if we go to WM, this is the key that we want to change, and you can see I'm running it here. This is the setting that I have. So that's the schema that we want to change, and it's window manager. So that will look something like that, and we'll go and find the rest of the MATE pieces. What was it? Session. Okay. This was fun. Coming up with a rainbow table for 32 CPU, 32 CPU cores, so that you don't have the same colors, you know, or the like loads of colors the same. This is first world problems. I'll show you what I mean. This is so when you're in here. I mean, I've since got a patch to actually extend this to 64, but it was like the first 4 had got colors and then everything was red, and it was a bit rubbish. So I now need to go and do the work to expand this, because in the modern day, obviously, you know, it's beyond within the reach of people to have, you know, many cores in their machines. So that was Windows. So it was this one. So it's before here. Here we go. And it was, I think it was just Window Manager, and that's going to be Marco picom. It may not be Windows Manager, actually. Is it just Window Manager? Window Manager. And that is a settings override, which will make that the default. Only on new installs. It won't go and change existing configuration on already installed machines, though. So I think that's all we need, although I've not been very consistent here in the way I've used quotes, but okay. Yeah, that's a great idea, Takov. That's a terrific idea. There must be something that does this, surely. It's a great. It didn't even occur to me. It's a great idea. Some type sort of script, ideally a bash script, that generates those rainbow tables for insert your number of CPU cores. Yeah, that would be pretty cool, wouldn't it? I used something to semi-automate it, but I can't remember what it was. Some sort of color swatch tool thing, but it was making blocks of 4 colors. So, you know, for small color bands. Right. So, and Linux Paul was just describing this. Let me have a look at this. So, I like Y-stacked monitors, and I also like a top panel on my main monitor. When I do that and maximize a window, the panel covers the title bar, including the window controls. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I will have a think about. I'll test that some more and have a think about it. I'm not saying I need to fix this to coax you back, but you obviously have found an edge case, or, you know, well, not an edge case, a bug. It's always interesting to have a look at those. Hello, Dust. How you doing? I see you've been busy. I'm not running the latest schnizzle yet, by the way. This was a bit of a last minute stream. I didn't want to deal with upgrading stuff, but after this one's done, I will be upgrading to the new stuff. Looks interesting though. I've been enjoying reading the release notes of what you've been up to. Hello Graham, welcome back. How you doing? Right then, so let's make that a default. Now, I'm not going to get into this today, but we're going to have to do a load of settings tweaks. So stuff I've got on my list, in fact, you know, we had a big list of stuff. So if I open up my thing again, I've got in the same standard notes, I have here my jammy jellyfish plans, and we can see here things that are done in green and things that are not yet done in red. So these are sort of, you know, the things that I need to get to, or at least would like to get to. And so these are the things I'm going to be doing next, because I want to get this stuff out of the way early, because I always leave it far too late, and I don't want to get caught by that this time. And then we got a bunch of stuff. We got some other bugs that I've seen that we could easily fix, and we're doing some work with Uru. So the one bit of upstream work that isn't in this yet is pulling in the latest Uru themes, and I wanna get back to that, because the Uru team have done a load of work again on my behalf, and I really need to go and get that all pulled in and what have you. So in fact, this work is done. That's quite handy. I opened that up. So the other thing I did recently was updated all the translation strings and all the things. Also well ahead of schedule, which I'm very pleased with myself remembering to do. Okay then, right. So that's my little, you know, document of stuff. But one of the things is going to be, you know, tweaking some of the settings and some of the integrations and what have you. But for now, this one will do. So let's get that pushed up. Can we release a new settings package? Yeah, we totally can, can't we? That should be the only change, and it is. Awesome. Oh, hello. That won't have done anything, I don't think. Yeah, good. So we'll push that up, and I think this is a native package. So if we look at the change log, yeah, it's all integrated here. So this is going to be good. So we can make this the first of the new release. That will be 0, like so. Okay, 2204.0, that's right. Okay. Also, I don't think that statement is true. So let's revert that change, because I think we need it. So let's revert that. So let's just put that in as well, and we'll say do that. Save that. This is for Jammy. And how confident do I feel about this? I think because of reinstating the other thing, we will do a PPA build of this and make sure that that gets tested before we hit the archive with it. So let's build that package and put that in the QA PPA. There we go. So that will just make sure that builds and I can test it in the VM later. In fact, what can I test? I can test that the dock replace is in there. I'm going to have to manually rebuild a new image. There won't be time to do that on stream. It will take several hours for that package to go through some testing and get then uploaded to the archive, then synced so that I can trigger a new ISO build and test a new ISO. So that will be happening later tonight or tomorrow. Did you lose the... What's this? Hello, King Egypt. Welcome back. Yes, that was standard notes, King Egypt. Yes, it was. Here it is again. And I'm using here... This is the Yaru theme. Believe it or not, somebody has made a Yaru theme. So I feel that integrates nicely with the rest of the desktop, even though this is, you know, orange as opposed to, you know, Chelsea Cucumber. But, you know, it's on brand with my shirt today at least. I use a different editor. So there's a community-made editor called SN Nimble. And that's the editor that I use for this, so that it's markdown and I can see all the mark up, but it's readable and usable. So this is what I use for you know, maintaining my notes and what have you. It even has spreadsheets and Kanban boards in it as well. And the reason I love it is that you don't have to save. It's just automatically synced and it's available on my phone and my tablet. So everywhere I go, I've got this and it works a treat. Another reason why I use that SN Nimble editor, because that works really well on the mobile devices. Okay, so Linux Pool is using Joplin. Yeah, there are so many of these types of tools now. There's one called Obsidian, which people are raving about as well. So Yannick says, did I lose the box again? I have no idea what you mean. What box? What box have I lost? Oh, that box. Still here. It's still here. I haven't lost it. I know exactly where it is at all times now. I just need to figure out how to get it to you, which it should be simpler than it said. It should be simpler than, you know, you would have thought. Right then, import tool. Oh right, okay. So Graham is moving from Notion to Obsidian. Yeah, so Notion's another one, and there's so many of them. I don't think there are any bad choices. It's just there's lots of choices and people have slightly different needs and what have you. And the thing I love about standard notes is it's everywhere. It's encrypted and it's synced to all of my devices. I quite like the Kanban board as well. I can't show you that because it's work stuff, but I have here. It's like my own personal Trello. It's pretty decent. What I want to do is, I've shown you my amazing spreadsheet where I track my activity. I want to start doing those sheets in standard notes rather than an actual spreadsheet on the desktop. What's in the box? It's a Sennheiser microphone. It's what's in the box. Which I have two of, and I said to Yannick I would send him one, but I think I told him that last century. And I kept misplacing this thing, but now I tied it up and it sits over there, and every time I walk past it I think I really must figure out how I get a European delivery collection service organised. Well, yes, it's not your average spreadsheet. I'm gonna wow you now. Check it out. Look, here it is. Here's my spreadsheet. It's tracking versions of packages in Debian and Ubuntu, and it's just so I can make sure that all the right versions land in all the right places. So yeah, it's just a visual aid, really. Yeah, I mean, just be thankful that it didn't cost £36 billion and it wasn't done in XL97. If you're in the UK, you will understand that reference. Right then. So where are we? We've made that change. So we're now going to, and we've pushed that to push the settings package up. So we're in good shape, I think. What have we got in? Oops, what have we got here? Nothing. What have we got? The change log. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So that's the only outstanding change. So I won't do anything with that then. Hey Cypheric, more like Lotus 123 or SuperCalc. Yeah. Well, apparently that test and trace thing is backed by XL97. Astonishing. There we go. Right then. Let's have a look. I think that is kind of what we wanted, right? So we found a bug in the picom stuff, which is fixed and committed but not released. That's fine. We've made this the default, which is going into the QA testing. I think the other thing that I was thinking I should probably do is like open up, a bit like we did with Firefox, is open up a bunch of apps and make sure there are none of the default apps that have any weird like compositing artifacts. So let's do this. We'll change our desktop to all white, solid color. That one there, in fact, is what I want to do. Solid color, all white. I know that looks a bit hideous. Now, the reason for that, of course, is that we can see the drop shadows on the composited windows nicely. So if anything's out of place, we'll spot it immediately. So we'll just start up. So this is client-side decorated. So that's using its own shadowing, which is why we've got GTK extents disabled. This is decorated by us, but it's a GNOME. It's from the GNOME project rather than a MATE app. This is obviously one of ours. So these are all working just fine so far. I'll tell you what, one that may not work is the about box. Could be a bit funky. No, that's working fine. Curious that their about box isn't client-side decorated. That's unusual to see that. Okay, firmware, that could be an interesting one. Okay, that's CSD again. That's obviously not going to find anything. We're on a VM, so we can close that. Let's think about the unusual ones. This should be fine. Nothing complicated there, so that's all good. So standard things. Let's think about the stuff. Oh, right. We don't want that. So that's something we need to go and change in our settings package as well. So let's go and find out where that is. I imagine that is user share applications. And there it is. So what we'll do is we'll SCP that to my machine here. What VLAN am I on? This one. We're there. So I'm copying that off the virtual machine to my local workstation, because what we're going to do is we're going to stop that. You can see here which category was it under. Was it under accessories? Yeah, under accessories there's just a link to the compositor. It's got a broken icon. We don't want it there because we want to manage that through Mate Tweak, which we have a nice user interface for. So we will come over to here, and in the settings package again, yeah, we're in the right spot. We will CP picom. So this is how you can override like what icons appear in different places. We'll copy that into user share, I think it's Mate applications, like so. We'll then code that and picom, and then what we'll do is we'll add a line to this to say no display equals true. And if I save that and then in fact let's do the same thing on the VM. So let's make this big. Picom to user share Mate. And then edit that. And we'll add no display equals true. Update the database, and hopefully that should now have gone. There we go. So what that does is it's like a settings override, but for desktop files. So user share applications is what everything uses, and then we have a separate set in here for Mate, and anything in here is now specific to when the Mate desktop session is running. So you can see I am in fact there's an old one we should probably keep that in there in case somebody installs Compton. But we did this for Compton as well, exactly the same thing. So when you're running in a Mate desktop session, these desktop icons take precedence over the system-wide ones. And this is a way that we can just tidy up and hide, things like these weird image magic icons and stuff like that that turn up in random places. So yeah, and things like htop, we ship htop by default, but we really don't want a desktop icon for it. So yeah, so that's we've proven that works, and we'll now commit that to the settings here. So let's get that in. So add that. So there we go, that's that done. We'll push that. In fact, I think we've got the changelog open, so I feel like we're going to be rebuilding this again very quickly. So we'll call this 1.1. So we'll have that as well, and we'll rebuild the package, and we'll just put that revised version into the PPA. So that's that was worth doing. We found another little bug there. Right then, King Egypt. I need to bid for some of those contracts. Yes, referring back to the test and trace thing. Right then, so King Egypt also says, so that's how I can have GNOME and KDE on the same computer without each other's apps appearing in the other's menus. That's one way of doing it. There is another way as well. Let me show you an example. So what I use that technique I've just shown you when I just want to completely hide an icon in the Mate session. That's the only way I use that. Also, that path, that user share desktop environment applications path, that is a patch to, I think, glib that very few distributions ship. So I think Debian and Ubuntu have it, and I don't think most others do. So it's not something that's universally applicable, but there is another thing that you can do, which I will show you. So if we go and look at let's look in here, because it auto starts. So this is the auto start desktop files. Let's take a look at let's look at this. Here we go. Indicator date time. If we cat that file, what you can see here is only showing, and hopefully you can see there it says Mate, Unity, XFCE and Pantheon. So what that says is this desktop file should only be visible in those desktop sessions. So for example, some of the Mate components are used in Ubuntu Mate and Ubuntu. So one of the things I changed when they expressed interest in using some of those bits and pieces was to change those applications to be available in not just the Mate sessions. So let's see if we can find an example of that. What are they using? I think if I cat ngrampa, which is the archive manager, do we have an only showing? This has got so much stuff in it now. Keywords, path, maybe that's just visible in everything, because it does sort of work in everything now. Yeah, that's not a good example. So what else are they using? Tell you what we'll do this. Let's do rip grep rg only showing. Here we go. So you can see here, look, most of the Mate components have only showing Mate, and this is something that we've done as a bit of a courtesy to people that do want to install multiple desktops, so you don't pollute, you know, the system, the menus with loads and loads of stuff. But you can see here, audio recorder says only showing Unity and GNOME. Now actually that's for the context menus, which is incorrect, because Mate actually supports all of that stuff as well, but the other desktops don't all implement those features of the free desktop specification. But you can see here there's a whole bunch of stuff that says only show this in Ubuntu Mate, and then things like Yelp, again, that will be one of the context menus. I should probably actually go through this and make sure that some of these things, like, yeah, properties live patch only showing GNOME, that's accurate, because, you know, these live patch features in the UI are only integrated in GNOME, in Ubuntu. So there you go. Only showing is another way to control which icons appear in which desktop environments, to stop that sort of pollution between different multiple installs of desktop environments. What were we doing? We were committing that change. Oh, that was it. And I submitted that new version of the package to build. Okay, that's good. Okay, so I think that was done, right? We've pushed that. Okay, good. So what we'll do now is we'll come back here. We'll see if we can find any other last minute rough edges in this that we can fix. So Control Center would be a good one because that's an unusual app, but that seems to be fine. What in here? That's all fine. I'm just trying to think of the things that might be a bit unusual. The network configuration, that should be good. I mean, all of these drop-down menus should be fine. That's probably something that could be tested. Let's try Firefox and look at its drop-down menus. Of course, it doesn't have any. It has this thing now. So I think we can still do menu bar. There we go. There we go. So those pop down. But there we go. Look, we can see those are not correctly rendered, the Firefox menus. So maybe that's why that Firefox thing was in there. But what we could try and do is... this is going to be tricky. How are we going to do this? Xprop. I wonder if we're going to be able to do this. Let's switch to Firefox. Oops. Firefox and Alt Fire. It's not letting me. So that one's fine. So this is the Windows properties. Crikey, it's still got a string for navigator. Crikey. Okay. Oh, gosh. We didn't need to see all of that. So, I might need to do some work to make sure that those drop-down menus... So this is the sort of thing why, I want to test this, because clearly that doesn't look right. But if we open... Let's try the same thing in LibreOffice, for example. Let's see if those ones are rendered correctly, and they are, so that's fine. So I suppose we should let's think. So that's good to remember. I will consider that. I wonder if we need to look at some others. So let's have a look through here. Universal access. No, that one could be interesting. Is that doing the right thing? And does it still work? It does. Okay, so that still goes. That's good. System tools. Anything in here that's unusual? Well, decomp editor we opened earlier. None of this should be strange or unusual. They should all be pretty straightforward. Celluloid could be a curious one. Let's have a look. No, that's fine. So that's using the regular popovers. So that's fine. This one might need testing because this is a cute app. So let's actually see if that behaves itself. Looks like it works. Yeah, I mean that's killing the VM a little bit, but it works. Rhythm box should be fine. References. Anything in here that's weird? Don't think so. Okay. Atril could be, because it's actually a bit of a hybrid app, this now. So, that works fine. So Yannick asks a question. So, well, let's have a look. There's a couple of things there. So, glad you found that useful, King Egypt. Qt-based apps, yes. Tactical Pew. So that's why I looked at Webcamoid. But we could install something a bit more significant. So let's just do that quickly. Let's install... Shotcut, which is written in Qt and is an excellent video editor. And I suppose the other thing that a lot of people are going to install probably is also going to be VLC. So let's get VLC on as well, and we'll look at both of those because that's also implemented using Qt. So we'll take a look at those two. These are both good suggestions, thank you. I can see some other good suggestions as well, and we'll get to that in just a moment. So let's start with VLC. There's the window, that's all fine. And those drop downs are fading in just fine. They're obviously slightly different because they're Qt and not GTK, but they are fading in. I mean, I could disable drop shadows on popovers and menus. So maybe that's something to consider, because that does make these a little bit slower to navigate because they're fading and being composited. So I might disable that for menus because it will make traversing menus that much quicker. What do we think about that? I see Yannick's question. I will get to that in a moment. And what was the other thing? We installed Shotcut. So let's take a look. Shotcut, and I've just seen something else we need to be mindful of. So those fade in just fine. But yeah, I think maybe I wonder if we can leave it so, because these are popovers, these indicators. So I wonder if we can leave the popovers. I'm thinking making the menus not composited, so you can rifle through them quickly. Now, the other thing that's just occurred to me is screenshot. Will that incorrectly grab like a composited region? So let's say the current window include and the window border. Take a screenshot. Copy that to the clipboard. Oh, I'm going to need to install GIMP now. So very quickly install GIMP. Okay. There it is, and if we just zoom into that, that has done the right thing. So we have got the area where the window shadowing would have been, but it hasn't captured the shadows, which is perfect. Okay, that's good. And then the other idea somebody had was to install Chrome. So let's go and get Google Chrome and download it and see if it works okay. Let's also test that. I'm going to save that because I'm curious. Why is that blue? How odd. Oh, because this is Firefox and it's a snap. Okay, so this is the auto connecting of themes isn't implemented, in which case I think we can learn from that. Okay, so let's open that. Install Chrome. Dex, I am going to test Brave as well, because that's obviously my default browser. But given that everything is sort of derived from Blink and Chromium, I thought I'd start here. We can't deny that Chromium is the most single widely used browser. So let's test this first. So Takov, it's not that it's rendered different. So Takov is asking about like the issues with that theming. It's because the Firefox is now a snap, and I'm using the ubuntumate Mate theme, but it will be trying to render using the default Adwaita theme until you connect the ubuntumate Mate themed snaps. I'm not going to do that now. That is something you can manually do, but it's also a facility that should be coming to Snapd to automatically do that for you. So yeah, it's just one of those little edge cases. So the installation's done for Chrome. So let's go and give Chrome a try. I'm sorry. It did say it was done, didn't it? Did it actually install? Oh, there we go. All right, well, let's see. Do not make it the default. Do not do that. Okay, so there's Chrome, which is... I've got too many things open now. Let's close a few windows so we can see what the heck's going on. Okay, so Chrome is using the picom compositor by the looks of it. If we do its internal menus, they are also being rendered with picom, and I don't know that there's a... I mean, that appears to be working fine. How could I test this more? Settings, maybe. No, this is good. This is all good. Yeah, okay, so I think Chrome's fine, and I would fully anticipate Brave to be fine as well. I'll test that after the fact. So we know that Qt is working, so the only thing is I wonder if we were to disable menus being composited with a shadow, if that would also fix Firefox's menus. Hello Paddy NI, how you doing? I'm sorry you missed the beginning. Yeah, Chromium has certainly cornered the market. So, something that Yannick asked was this. Do I fancy doing a multiplayer stream for Trackmania Stadium tonight? Yes, we can do that. I'll speak to you about that afterwards in Discord. But yeah, we can. My Hotshot Racing setup is there. All of the things exist. I mean, here we go. This is how it would work. In fact, I've got buttons for it and everything now. So this would be, you know, where we would both be on screen at the same time, and this is where, you know, the games would be. So yeah, all of the stuff exists to do this. It's all still there. It's ready to go. But I'll speak to you because we'll have to have a think about how to do it. Okay, I'll catch up with you in a bit. So I think we've learned. I'm not happy about the way those menus are, not just in Firefox. I mean, that's particularly disappointing because I'm in the wrong view context. There we go. So if we start Firefox up again. I mean, this is not the default behavior, of course. That you know, you don't display these by default in Firefox. You have to turn them on, but nevertheless, this is broken. And I'm going to have to look into that. So I think this is why I saw those comments about disabling Firefox and ARGB, probably for this particular reason. Firefox is strange. It looks like it uses GTK, but it doesn't really. It's kind of a shim. It's a bit weird how it works. Okay. Well, I've learned a couple of things. We've fixed a couple of things. That's all good. So I think there's one outstanding issue, and I think the menus, in any application, I would like the menus to be quicker. You know, it looks pretty, this, but it makes scanning through these menus a bit slow and clunky. And I'm pretty sure I had this problem when we did the Compos integration with Mate Desktop, and I disabled menu fades and what have you. So I think I'll re-implement that for the purposes of this picom integration. Yeah, so Graham, yeah, I think, yeah, you and I are on the same page on this. You know, some people will be quickly, you know, scanning through menus looking for something, and they won't want to be waiting, you know, 0.08 of a second for each thing to render. So I think we'll drop the fading from there. I'll have a think about how we do that. I think I know how to do that. And I'll then see if that fixes the Firefox stuff as well. In fact, I wonder if that's going to be obvious. Well, next time I stream about desktop stuff, hopefully I'll have had that fixed. So that's the plan. And anyway, as Yannick alludes to, later today, very late tonight UK time, there is Trackmania Stadium Linux Nerds race night. We're going to be doing rounds on 15 tracks, so that's like the first to 1,000 points on 15 tracks. So consistency is king. It looks like I will be streaming, maybe with Yannick joining me, but Linux Gamecast, who are also here on Twitch TV, they will be doing the main stream. Ven will be hosting that. So I'll be doing that later. Glad you like the sound of that, Paul. And I will be streaming again next week. Exciting news. I managed to get a... can we even see what that is on camera? There we go. It's a Raspberry Pi 4 Compute Module Lite with no Wi-Fi, but 8 gigs of RAM, and that's to go in this. So I want to get the Ubuntu Mate stuff done. I may plug away at that in the early part of next week to get some of that stuff done, and then I can get back to refreshing QuickEmu, because there's been a load of activity there. It's been a month since I did any serious work on that, so we've got some pull requests to get merged in and a bug that I need to investigate. And then I want to do some work on Retro Home again, because I want to get some of these more interesting devices working, because, for example, I do have a Desk Pi. In fact, you can't see it because of the way the camera is zoomed. There we go. I do have a Desk Pi here, and I have another one to build down here as well, which will go to the lodge. And they're brilliant cases, so I want to do a build of that and get that Retro Home stuff cooking, because for Easter I'm seeing most of the family, and I want to give all the kids their own console at Easter, so I really need to get a wiggle on with that. Slow menus are good for TV, but frustrating for users, I think, Yannick. And Paddy asks, do you still have that alt HUD search stuff? Yes, it's still there. Let me it's something that you have to choose to use, so let me just why didn't that... oh, I'm in the wrong screen, silly boy Martin. Right, there we go. Let's do that and go here. So if you bring up tweak, in the right machine even. Let's try that again. So if you bring up tweak, you can enable the HUD here. And now, there you go. Interestingly, we've just found a bug. That's the first time I've used it since I implemented the UBuntu MATE theme, and it's not themed correctly. So here's the HUD, and we're running LibreOffice under here, so we could search for about and bring up the about page. Oh, except that's not working either. Oh gosh. Well, looks like, oh, there it is. It just took a it just took a while to actually bring it up. No, that did work. So yeah, the HUD is there. So tap Alt. Let's think. Preferences, is that something that exists? No, not preferences, so it must be options. This is the you know, the thing about, you know, the HUD that's really useful. We still got GIMP up? No. You know, well, let's bring it up. Like when you've got something complex like GIMP and you're looking for a filter and you're like, oh, oops, wrong button. Is it like, you know, rotate? And then there we go. There's all of the things with rotate in the menus. So now you can just find the one you want and apply it. So it's a nice feature. It's Roffy is the actual menu behind it, but so I'm going to add to my list of things that I need to add a UBuntu MATE detection for that. So I'll just add that to my notes so that doesn't get overlooked. In fact, what we'll do is, I'm just a bit curious about that because it should all be dynamic. So we'll just change the theme back to the old theme. And that's not themed correctly either. So something has changed. So actually it's not that it's not picking up UBuntu MATE. It's something has changed in the way it works, and it's not it's not applying the integration. So we'll fix that. I've made a note. So Roffy theme integration. But yeah, the fact that the HUD still works, I suppose, is good. And I saw that, was it Rudra? Did I see you in there? No, someone else. It was RJ. So RJ says, can the HUD be used with other window managers? I use i3 and would love to have the HUD there. It can be used with other window managers, but it does need the app menu pieces installed, and so that's, you know, that was a ton of work to get all of that done. That's another one of these upstream projects that I work with in order to sort of, you know, keep that stuff ticking over. But yeah, it can work. And I know that people use the MATE HUD, which is a separate bit of code. You'll find it on GitHub in the Ubuntu MATE organization. So github.com/Ubuntu MATE. In there's MATE HUD. You can, you know, go and grab that and run it. And so long as it'll tell, it knows what it needs. You still use the HUD a lot, do you? I'm glad that that's getting good use. Okay. So yeah, I don't use it much these days. I'm not really sure why, but I'll probably have to turn it on and figure out why that integration, the theme integration, isn't working. Right, okay, so I've got a couple of bugs. I'm going to make a note here. I also need to fix Firefox menus, box menus with picom, and disable menu fading, shadows maybe with picom. So those are some new things that we've learned as a result of that testing. That's quite good. I'm glad we discovered that, because that might have gone unnoticed otherwise. So that's terrific. Wow, that was a long one. That was longer than I was expecting. So what have we got here? Oh, excellent. So we will go and see friends of ours. So thank you all very much for coming, everyone. I'll be back this evening playing some games, and there'll be some more Ubuntu MATE live streams coming up in the days ahead. And then, like I said, moving back to Retro Home and a little bit of QuickEmu. So thanks very much for coming, everyone, and hello to everyone that was new today. We're going to head over to White Panther now. So she's busy doing some CSS work, so we're gonna head over there and take a look at that. And I'll catch you soon. Bye for now.
Welcome.